how complicated is the agenda? Because in the recommitment of the US to Asia, of course, all of this is happening amidst what has been a highly criticised and very messy exit from Afghanistan.
I think what the administration is showing is that they can walk and chew gum at the same time. Yes, there's a crisis that's come from the past that they're dealing with, but they're also looking at opportunities for the future. And the places where Kamala Harris is traveling are real opportunities for the United States.
The pragmatic relationship, the alliance between the US and Singapore has been kind of held up as a model. Is it possible to replicate that in other countries? And how well is that message of building the alliance against a rising China going?
Singapore punches above its weight in the region. And the kind of arrangements that have been made between the United States and Singapore on this trip suggest what is possible. There's an agreement I see on your screen, an agreement on climate change. There's one on supply chains. There's an agreement, a partnership for growth and innovation. And Kamala Harris announced America's willingness to host the APEC, the Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation Forum in 2023. That's a really good way to once again drive the policy agenda, including on climate, supply chains, and digital trade. So Singapore is a really good start to her trip.
Ambassador, what are businesses telling you about what they want to see this year in terms of the U.S. ASEAN relationship?
They're asking us to listen also to what the ASEAN nations want. They want to recover from COVID, and then they want to move beyond emergency response to a more extended recovery, and that means opening back up. The administration's been great on, I think, on providing emergency response. 23 million doses of COVID vaccines going to the Southeast Asia region. And then the U.S. business community has been stepping up and providing oxygen, providing diagnostic testing and equipment for home health kits to help people when they're stuck at home. But the real focus is going to be on what do we do after this? And that's why these discussions about supply chains, about infrastructure, about a digital economy, and then long-term collaboration on health and climate change. That's why these discussions are so critical, and it's really great that she's carrying out these discussions at this time.
What sort of difference has the change in U.S. administration from President Trump to President Biden made for businesses doing, having relationships between the U.S. and ASEAN nations? Does that affect businesses?
Well, business was going pretty well in most sectors during the last administration, and it continues to do well in this administration. Southeast Asia is rich with opportunity. There are 662 million people. There's a GDP of 3.2 trillion. It's the fastest growing digital economy in the world, 400 million people already online and many more coming on each day. So US businesses and other businesses from the other parts of the world see huge opportunities for growth in ASEAN. And I'm really glad that this visit is not just focused on security, but also security is really about more than ships and planes. It's also about ties between nations. And what I think the Vice President is doing is cementing those ties in multiple areas on the two stops of her trip.
When it comes to economic ties between nations, it was a bilateral approach taken with the previous administration. Things haven't really changed much when it comes to US-China trade. There's no kind of suggestion we're going to see a re-acceleration of the US becoming involved again in the TPP. But is there hope that we could see more multilateralism when it comes to trade agreements?
I think there's hope. It won't happen instantly. But one area where the administration could take a proactive step and have a more proactive trade agenda is in the area of the digital economy. There are so many opportunities, and there are great models, including Singapore's arrangements with Chile and New Zealand and with Australia. These are models to be emulated. And even the chapters of CPTPP, which used to be TPP, that deal with the digital economy are terrific. And the U.S.-Canada-Mexico agreement also has a great model for what might be possible in the digital realm. And since that is an area of such focus, especially in this time after COVID, when small and large businesses alike are depending on the internet. That's a real opportunity, and I think could happen pretty fast if the administration decided to pursue it.
Also in focus has been, at least for the U.S. Treasury, Vietnam's currency valuation. Will that be a hindrance to enhancing relations?
I don't think so. I think that was set aside before this visit. And then you look at the great success of Lloyd Austin's visit to Vietnam. I think both countries are very forward-looking when it comes to Vietnam. Now, look, the last time a sitting U.S. vice president went to Vietnam was Lyndon Johnson in 1962. Here we have an Asian American vice president going to this country where we have shown that reconciliation between old enemies is possible. You can go from being adversaries to being friends. There are a lot of great lessons for the Vietnam part of the trip.